Senator David Pocock, welcome to the Canberra Conversation. Thank you for being the first person to stare into the 2030 Canberra Futures crystal ball.
Thanks, Genevieve. Yeah, interested to see what comes up.
Yeah, well, let's see where this goes. You've had a couple of weeks in Parliament now. The ecstasy of May 2021 and the election night's probably faded a bit. What have you come to understand about the hard, cold reality of representing Canberra up on the hill?
I'm really enjoying it. It's a huge challenge to just get across so many different portfolios, and there's been a lot coming through the Parliament. So wanting to understand the bills that are coming through, consult, and then make a decision, but also consulting with the community, staying accessible. It's such a huge privilege, and we're sort of working out the systems to actually allow us to do that.
So let's stay with the short term for just a moment. You've talked about wanting to be a peacemaker. That's a great idea on the surface of it. Brian Harradine was the longest serving independent senator in Australian parliamentary history. Now, he got a lot done for Tasmania, not by being a peacemaker though. He wasn't everyone's mate. Jackie Lambie takes much the same tack. There's a strong feeling in the ACT that we have been underrepresented. Are you not going to get more done by being a wedger?
I'm going to use the power that I have on the crossbench to get good outcomes for the ACT. Being an independent, I'm happy to work with both sides, and I've been doing that. On the climate bill, actually working with the Jackie Lambie network on what we think are really sensible amendments that strengthen Labor's climate bill, and I think actually add accountability and transparency. And my sense from all the conversations I had during the campaigns, people in the ACT want a sensible way forward. So many of these big issues we face get politicised, and we see finger pointing between states and territories and the federal government. At the end of the day, these problems need to be dealt with, and I guess that's the thing that I've been pushing is that people want more than talk; they want action.
So have you got that in you, though? I mean, are you a fighter on these things? Politics is a blood sport. You can be respected without necessarily being liked by everyone, and that can be a tough transition. So have you got the grunt?
Yeah, I mean, my job is to get there and actually represent the ACT, ensure that we are getting, our fair share of funding. That's clearly something that we've been missing out on. But then also on these big issues that we face, ensuring that our voices are heard and that we're pushing the federal government to act when it comes to housing affordability, cost of living, things that we're feeling the pinch every day. And Canberra's at the front of many of these crises around housing affordability, skills shortages. Canberra businesses really struggling. So yeah, that's it's a great challenge. I feel like my experience in professional sport around actually working in a small team and having the work ethic, being able to perform under pressure, combined with involvement in agriculture and conservation, where you can have all the ideals you want, but at the end of the day you got to make things happen, and that one takes tough conversations and ultimately compromise, and working with people that you don't necessarily see eye to eye on issues or may not even like, but you work with them because you want a good outcome. Yeah,
I'm really interested that you just mentioned the Jackie Lambie network, because that woman is a tough negotiator, and she's someone who pushes forward very strongly for the interests of her constituents. Where are you finding your alliances? I guess I'm at this stage I'm talking to everyone. I'm new there, so I'm starting to make those relationships, work out what different people are interested in, what their agenda is for the next few years, how that may align with the things that people in the ACT have told me that they want worked on, and we'll see how that evolves. Well, look, let's get on to those things that people in the ACT might want to have worked on, and you're clearly vital to Labor as that 39th vote in the Senate. You've replaced a senator who was widely seen to be not that interested in local issues and local needs. To be really blunt, what's in it for us for the next 3 years? What are you feasibly actually going to be able to get done? I mean, territory rights was huge during the campaign. During the federal election campaign, New South Wales became the last state to legislate voluntary assisted dying.
working hard on the numbers in the Senate. I think they're looking good. We're not going to leave it a chance, so we'll keep having those conversations with people who potentially change their vote and support it. You know, the other big issues are around housing affordability, cost of living, you know, jobs and skills shortages. We have to push the government to actually act on them. Great that there's consultation happening, the Jobs and Skills Summit. I think there's some really good stuff will come out from, but then we need to see these things actually actioned. And when it comes to, say, housing, you know, building 30,000 social and affordable homes over the next decade is a start, but it's not enough. And so it's continually putting pressure on to actually up the ambition and finding ways that we can actually do that. Whether, you know, I've already had meetings with the relevant ministers around the ACT's historic social housing debt. You know, over the next decade we'll spend $33 million just repaying interest. Makes no sense in a housing crisis.
So is that, you know, maybe one of the big things? I guess people are expecting major pieces of infrastructure, and we know that the Territory's own budget is very constrained. Would it make more sense, for example, to get the housing debt waived? Is that something that you could see as achievable?
I think it's something that's really tangible and I'd hope achievable. There's been precedent in Tasmania. South Australia had, I think, 260 million waived there. So clearly, when there are circumstances that warrant it, and ACT is at the forefront of this housing crisis, I'm certainly putting my case forward.
Yeah, but, you know, the voters in the Territory are hungry for infrastructure, and we well remember a couple of budgets ago, I can remember questioning Zed Seselja on what he said was funding for the King's Highway, and I said, with 3 kilometres of King's Highway inside the ACT boundaries. Can you deliver things that will satisfy the voters when the honeymoon glow has worn off? If it's all housing debt waiving, integrity commission of values-driven things, what's that to take to the electorate again in 3 years' time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on and pushing these issues. We haven't been getting our fair share of infrastructure funding. With the nation's capital, our convention centre is not up to scratch. Like, we can't even host big, you know, international conferences. We're missing out on money. Our national institutions are crying out for funding. You know, the efficiency dividend is making it incredibly hard for them to actually, you know, perform such an important role, not just for the ACT, but for the nation, in actually telling the stories of how we got here and who we are, and, you know, hopefully pointing to where we can go as a nation. So, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done there, and I think it's really helpful that Senator Gallagher is the finance minister. You know, she holds the purse strings. So, yeah, I'm sure she'll be pushing for the ACT as well.
So let's have a gaze into that crystal ball then. Let's look at Canberra 2030. What sort of city should we be by then? What kind of city do we need to be? And what can you do to get us there? What are you envisaging?
We're a growing city, and that obviously brings in challenges with how we plan for that and the infrastructure to actually service that larger population. I think on top of that, the thing that we have to remember is that we are a regional hub. You know, within an hour and a half's drive, there's 1 million people, and so the thing that I've been saying to the government in meetings is, like, you've got to actually start recognising that and ensuring that we're investing to the level that's not just going to service 450,000 people, but, you know, 1 million people. And so, you know, I think people want a livable city. Have to ensure that housing is more accessible, that there's a greater choice in terms of people who want to buy and the offerings there, people who want to rent and the offerings there. Public transport, you know, the Territory government has commitments in that area. And then I think bigger pieces of infrastructure, you know, we've heard about the theatre, but you look at convention centre and stadium, hopefully in the city. It makes sense to have them in the city, but, you know, that's obviously pretty contentious at the moment.
You've got a hard road ahead of you, haven't you? You come up for election again in 3 years' time, perhaps even less. The risk for you would be that the ACT Liberals get their act together and pre-select, let's say, moderate, middle of the road, woman with a business background, this is going to be a really hard call because, as I say, the honeymoon glow will have gone and you'll have need to have delivered something. You will need to have actually have something to put on the table rather than hope and dreams. That's challenging. It's
a challenge, but it's exciting. I mean, that's what democracy should be. You should be judged on what you actually get done for people and whether or not people are actually proud to have you representing them and voting on their behalf in the Senate. So I wouldn't want it any other way. In 3 years' time, I'd want people to actually make their mind up. Have I represent them in a way that makes them proud and they can say, well, actually, he's helped make the ACT a better place to live.
So 2030, are you still going to be here for this clean, green city where the transport and the housing problems have been solved and we're happily servicing 1 million people and growing in a way that's sustainable? Will you still be around?
Certainly hope so. I'm still young, so I hope I've got a few more years beyond 2030, but who knows?
Well, let's have a conversation again and keep tracking along as to where we're going for this city for the future. David Pocock, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Genevieve.